In this video, I will be doing a peach colored eye look with a full face foundation, contour, and highlight. And to start off, I always start with my eyes. I'm going to be using a concealer brush and MAC Pro Longwear Concealer. I just cover my entire eyelid to get rid of the lines and the uneven skin tone, and it also makes my eyeshadow pop. Next, I'm going to go in with the Sweet Peach palette using the shade Georgia. I'm also going to use the Morphe M441 brush. It's more of a fluffy brush. This shade is going to go all over my eyelid, mostly in the crease and a little bit above the crease. And as always, when there's nothing left on the brush, I just continue to go back and forth, spreading everything around as much as I can to make it nice and even. Next, I'm going in with the same palette in the shade Candied Peach, and this is going to go into my crease area. I'm using the crease brush from Younique. There it is. It's just a smaller brush. It's meant for the crease. I start in the outer area and just work my way in, and what I do with all of my eyeshadows and all of my makeup, I just continue to keep going until there's nothing left, and that's when I'll start pulling everything from the darker side more towards the middle, but keeping the darkest parts mostly on the outside. Next, I'm going to use the Just Peachy palette, and I'm going to use the shade Peach Punch. I'm going to use a little bit more of a wider brush. This one doesn't actually have a name to it. It's just a random makeup brush. This is going to go mostly all over my eyelid, and I'm just going to keep spreading it around and blending it in with the other colors that I already have. And I'm keeping the heaviest part of this shade mostly in the center of my eye. Cleaning off that same brush, I'm going to use the shade Just Ripe out of the same palette, and I'm just using this just to darken the corners a little bit more, so I'm just starting on the outside and then blending inward slowly, keeping the darkest part on the very outside of my eye. Next, I'm going to use the ColourPop Golden State of Mind palette, and I'm going to use the color Drizzle. And then I'm going to use a Younique concealer brush with it because of the reason it being flat. And this way I can really press that color onto my eyelid. Since there's already a color there, it's going to be hard to stand out, so I'm really just pressing it in. I'm keeping it mostly on the inner corner of my eye and towards the middle. Next, I'm just going to take a very small skinny brush and use this for the inner corner of my eye. I went back to the Sweet Peach palette using the shade Nectar, and like I said, I'm really just pushing this one on the inner corner of my eye and letting it fade as it goes upward to blend in with the rest of the shadow. Now I'm using the Younique Deluxe brush. It's just a little more of a fluffy brush, and I'm using the shade Peaches and Cream, and this I just use as a brow bone area for a highlight, and I take that down to the inner corner or towards the end of my eyebrow and just blend it in with everything else. Moving on to a gel eyeliner. This is Maybelline Eye Studio. It does come with a brush, but I'm using a small angled one. I'm going to use this only for above my eyelashes. I just start where I'm comfortable and just take my time making just a straight line, outlining everything, making sure everything is nice and even. Moving on to mascara. This is called Superhero by IT Cosmetics. It's just a sample. It has a huge brush to it, so I just quickly go over my top lashes and get everything nice and even. I don't try really hard because I am going to put on eyelashes. The eyelashes I am going to use are by Andrea, and they are number 53. And the easiest way I have found to put eyelashes on is I take a bobby pin and I dip the end into the glue and I apply it as if I'm doing a liquid eyeliner. And then if you have tweezers or anything that comes with the eyelashes that you buy to help set them on there. And before I even put the eyelashes on my eye, I do let the glue get a little bit more on the sticky side instead of when it's still runny. I feel like it helps it stick a lot better. Moving on to the face, I'm going to start with Makeup Forever HD Primer and a flat kabuki brush. This one is by Tarte. I just put a little bit on the back of my hand, dip the brush in, and then just spread everything around all over my face as even as possible. Next, I'm going to use the Younique concealer, and this is in the shade Satin. And this part is where I'm going to look a little bit crazy for a moment, but I promise in the end it's all going to tie together. And the reason I'm saying it's going to look crazy because it's going to be very orange sitting on my face. But what I'm doing is just using my fingers and adding a little bit into the areas that I want to cover, mostly where I have freckles and uneven skin tone. And then I just continue to use my fingers to blend everything in. I also add a little bit of this to my forehead to cover some of the freckles up there. And now you can see the war paint. And next I'm going to use the Makeup Forever HD Primer. I believe the shade is N127. I put a little bit on the back of my hand, and I use that same brush by Tarte, the flat kabuki brush that I used for the primer. I just dip that into what I put on the back of my hand and start on my cheeks and just blend everything outward. And this shade is actually a little bit on the light side for me, so it kind of works well with the dark orangey concealer that I put on before this. They actually mix pretty well together and everything kind of evens out on its own. Next I'm going to use the Bare Minerals Stroke of Light, and I'm going to use this as a cream highlighter. I am actually at the very end of this, so I'm only going to put this under my eyes and at my cupid's bow. And at the cupid's bow area, that'll actually help make your top lip look a little bit fuller. Then I'm just going to take the opposite end of that Tarte brush that I've been using. It's just a smaller end. And I'm going to use that just to blend in all of this highlighter. I really take my time underneath my eyes going in different directions, not just one. So that way it doesn't really crease up if I'm pushing it only in one direction. Next I'm going to use the Fenty Matchsticks Trio, and I have the shade Medium. I'm going to use the color Mocha, and this is going to be a contour. For this I make a line on each side of my face that would be even with the top of my ear down to the corner of my mouth. Then I use the Morphe M439 brush, and I take this and just start blending it in. I do small circles, and at the areas where I'm closer to my ear I push it a little bit upward and a little bit lower. And then as I work towards the corner of my mouth, I drag what little bit would be left on my brush just a little bit closer to the corner of my mouth, but not all the way. I do the same exact process on the outside edges of my forehead, bringing it only a little bit inward towards the middle. This is what it looks like so far, but we're not done yet. Next I'm going to use a setting powder. It's Maybelline Master Fix and a Younique powder puff brush. You use the same technique as you would with the Bare Minerals because it's a loose powder. Just put a little bit in the lid, swirl your brush around, and then tap off the excess and lightly brush it on all over the face. What this does is just set all the makeup that we put on previous to this to make it nice and neat and give it a nice finish. Next I have the Hoola bronzer by Benefit and the NARS Ida brush, and this technique I've actually learned from a Jaclyn Hill video a very long time ago, and ever since I've tried it I cannot stop doing it. It's basically the same thing that we did with the cream contour, except for this is a powder. So you just basically do the same thing. You start off with a little bit, you clean off your brush, and then just blend everything out. This is my favorite highlighting powder by Smashbox. It's called Soft Lights. And then I'm going to use the Morphe F3 brush. I put just a little bit on the brush and then apply this under my eyes, and then in my T-zone area, down a little bit on my nose, and then I also go back over the Cupid's bow area. I also went back over and added a little bit of bronzer underneath my bottom lip because this will help your bottom lip look a little bit more full. Now I'm going to go in with MAC, and the shade is called Peaches, and I'm using a blusher brush. I just start by putting a little bit of product on the apples of my cheeks, cleaning off my brush, and then blending it back. Now I'm going in with Anastasia's Dip Brow in the shade Soft Brown. I'm using an angled brush. I'm just going to lightly tap this into the product, and then I'm going to use the back of my hand, like I did with everything else, and wipe some of the product off. But before applying, I'm going to take a spoolie and brush through the hairs on my eyebrow just to get everything set in place. Then when applying the product, I start where my eyebrow is already to the darkest and the thickest, just because that's when the most of the product is still going to be on the brush. I just outline my eyebrows and just work my way towards the end where it's lighter. And then I go back and touch up any of the areas that I feel need a little bit extra, but I always start where it's the heaviest, so that way I'm not putting a heavy amount of product in an area that doesn't have a lot of hair. Then I go back in with a spoolie brush and just comb through, putting the hairs back in place. This will also help spread the product around and get rid of any harsh lines. Then I go in with Anastasia's Brow Powder, and this is in the shade Dark Brown. I take my brush and I go right down the middle, getting both colors on the brush, and I do the same exact process as I did before, starting where the brow is already thick and working my way to the end. And then going back with a spoolie to spread everything back out. Now I'm going to use the Younique lip pen. This is in the shade Pouty. I line my lips entirely with this, and then I also completely fill them in with this shade. This is just a very neutral shade, and I can wear this with just about any makeup look that I do. Then to top this off, I'm using Bare Minerals Moxie lip gloss, and this is the shade Dazzler. I just do a very thin coat of this. Then to completely finish this look, I'm going back to the eyes with a MAC eye kohl, and this is in the shade Smolder. I'm just going to go corner to corner on my waterline with this one, and then I'm just going to connect it to what I did on the top above my lashes, and then I'm going to go back and do my lower lashes with the same mascara that I used earlier just to finish everything off. And this is the final look of everything. Here's a close-up of what the eyes look like. And of course, everything would have looked much better if I would have done something with my hair today, or have at least gotten rid of the flyaways. So here is a few other angles of what everything looks like, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.